Do you remember the moment in your life where you came closest to death? I'm about to tell you what this exact moment was for me and why it made me decide that I will never attempt to break into an abandoned building again. And thank you to PDS Debt for sponsoring this video. So me and my friends decided to go to the beach one day, but we weren't planning on going to just some normal beach. No, this was a private one where many of the richest people in Los Angeles would go. Lady Gaga, Miley Cyrus, Jonah Hill, all names of people who had houses on this beach. So in our attempt to cosplay being rich, we wanted to sneak into it. But as we're driving up to the beach, seeing all these ginormous houses, we see one in particular that catches our eye. Because this mansion stood out like a cat in a dog park. How so? Well, all the other houses were super nice and well kept, but this one was different. Windows were broken, graffiti on the walls, grass was way overgrown, so it was pretty clear that this one was abandoned. But it was so weird that in a place like this, there would be a house that someone would just completely stop using. Like, who has enough money to own a mansion in one of the most expensive areas of California and just abandon it? Not me and not you. That's right, we're both broke. So after seeing this abandoned house, me and my friend saw a golden opportunity. We had to try sneaking in this house. Cause how often do you get to go inside a mansion, let alone an abandoned mansion, let alone an abandoned mansion on the beach? Now, although it was pretty obvious that this place was clearly abandoned, we wanted to make sure that no one was currently living there. So we Googled abandoned mansions in Malibu just to see if this one would come up. And sure enough, it did. Which led us to discovering that this place belonged to a lady named Cynthia Beck. That's a very important name that you'll need to remember for later. Now, from what we read, Cynthia abandoned this house in the early 2000s, so no one was there. I guess she owns a bunch of properties that she never visits, including this one. So technically, someone did own the place, but at the same time, we knew there was no chance that anyone would be there, right? So we decided to go explore it. But what we didn't think about is how powerful someone with this amount of money could be. And that mistake would ultimately get us into big trouble later in the day. But anyways, we made our decision. We drove down the road, found inconspicuous parking, and walked back our way to the mansion. Getting inside the place was surprisingly easy. The huge, intimidating front gate had a gap in the fence where we could sneak under it one by one. But as I've said before, sometimes I think I'm schizophrenic because whenever I'm in a situation like this, I always think someone is watching me, even if there's no reason to. So I kept looking over my shoulder, just having a gut feeling that we would get caught. Little did I know, something much worse would happen than just getting caught. And thank you to PDS Debt for sponsoring this video. Now imagine you're living your normal life, and one day you find out that a predator is hunting you. A silent, patient predator. And the scariest part, it doesn't need a weapon to hurt you. Why? Because it has something even more dangerous: late fees and interest rates. At first, you barely even notice this danger until it starts ruining your days. One week, your paycheck vanishes. Then, your bank account freezes. The life you worked so hard to build, gone. And the worst part is, you never saw it coming. The good news? You can still escape if you act now and contact PDS Debt. If you've ever had debt before, you know just how overwhelming it is. No matter what, it always lingers in the back of your mind and makes you feel like you can never be stress-free. This is why PDS Debt is a game changer, because it takes all your high-interest debts and rolls them into one simple and lower monthly payment. It's like finally hitting the reset button. But what makes PDS Debt different? They actually listen to your situation and create a plan that's specific for your needs. It's not just a one-size-fits-all solution. No, it's tailored for you. PDS Debt doesn't care about your credit score. They're here to help you save more, pay off your debt faster, and finally keep your hard-earned money where it belongs: in your pocket. Debt doesn't have to control your life. Get your free assessment at pdsdebt.com/Tyler Vitelli and find your path to financial freedom. You're only 30 seconds away from taking the first step. Once we got past the gate, things started to get really uncomfortable. We walked up to the front door and we're trying to think of ways to get inside. Should we try getting through a window? Should we try picking the front door lock? But then something amazing happened. My friend pulled on the front door knob and it opened. Who would have thought? We could have just tried opening the door. So we stepped inside. Now, the moment I got into this house, goosebumps started to crawl all over my skin because this house felt straight out of the Great Gatsby movie. Now, I've never actually watched that movie before, but I just assumed this is what it was like because it wasn't modern. It had super cool, unique architecture. And what do I mean by that? Well, for starters, there were walls that looked like they were made out of literal gold. I don't know what they were actually made out of, but that's what it looked like. So that kind of gives you a vibe for what the house was like. But after looking around the house for a couple seconds, I saw something that started to make me really uncomfortable. But those aren't even the craziest things that were in there, because what we discovered later in the house made us realize that this place was much more than just an abandoned building. I don't know why, but I felt like I had a TikTok accent when I just said that. Do y'all think I have a TikTok accent? This has nothing to do with the video, but just let me know. I need to know. Anyways, these personal items we found made a super unsettling atmosphere. Like, there was one room that clearly must have been for a child. There was stuffed animals and building blocks arranged as if a family was just living there, and out of nowhere, They just disappeared. And after leaving the children's room, we went to the basement, and this was when things started to get weird. Because the basement revealed a huge surprise. We got to the bottom of the stairs, and what do we see? A vault that looked straight out of a heist movie. There was a massive steel door with one of those levers that you spin around to open it, and it was slightly open, just enough for us to squeeze through it. Now, I don't know how any of you guys watching this grew up, and maybe I'm in the minority here, but I did not grow up with a bank vault in my house. A piggy bank with 80 cents in it? Yes. But a vault that looks straight out of Maze Bank? No. If any of you guys grew up with this and I'm just out of the loop, please let me know. I want to stay with you. But because I've never seen something like this in a house before, it felt really strange. So of course we stepped inside hoping that we just hit the jackpot, but unfortunately, it was empty. What did I kick? A bullet. Now I had no idea why this was in there, but I was also too dumb to question it, so I just kept moving along. But then I started to think, what would be so valuable that you would need to put a bank vault inside your house? Was the Krabby Patty formula hidden in there? That was my best guess. But as we're exploring the inside of this vault, we heard the last noise you would ever want to hear when you're in this situation. A car right outside. My friend whispered, "Did you guys hear that?" And the terrified looks on our faces confirmed that we did. At first, we just thought it was someone who had the same idea as us and wanted to explore the place. But then we remembered, we had to hop a gate to get onto this property. So the only way for a car to get onto this property was to open the gate. It was huge, so they had to know how to open it to get through. And what did this mean? Whoever opened that gate wasn't just another person who was trying to explore this place. No, it was someone who had been here before. And we didn't know what to do. So we just stood there frozen, trying to be as quiet as possible and listen to what whoever was out there was gonna do next. My heart then started to pound even more because we heard one door shut, then two doors, then three doors, then four. It was clear this wasn't just one or two people. No, it was a big group. Then came the footsteps. Numerous, heavy footsteps. They were getting closer and closer and sounded as if they were running. And it made it super clear that whoever they were coming after us. We were at the bottom of a basement with no other way out and heard what sounded like a dang millipede chasing us with all those footsteps. So we just kind of stood there waiting for whoever this was. We knew we couldn't do anything else. They obviously knew we were here and there was nothing we could do about it anymore. So I just hit that dog pose. I pretty much accepted that we were cooked. But as the footsteps got closer, eventually we heard the front door slam open. This wasn't Tinkerbell opening the door. It sounded like my mom after I didn't put a dish away and she came running into my room. That's how much force they put into opening that door. And then we heard screams.
"Anyone inside needs to come out with their hands visible."
My first instinct was, oh my gosh, it's the police. I'm about to get arrested. I should run and get out of here. But my second instinct was, you're an idiot. I don't know when I started thinking I could outrun the police, but it wasn't gonna happen. So me and my friends are just standing there frozen, shaking, having no idea what to do. None of us said a word. Like, what exactly are you supposed to do in this situation? Please, let me know. Cause listen, I've seen those videos before where people get raided by the police, and I know that if you make any sudden movements, you're putting yourself in danger. So I just stood there like the mannequin in Target that I used to be slightly attracted to. I was like this. Because we weren't making any noise, this group of people that just got into the house still didn't know where we were at. So I could hear them methodically moving through the house room by room. They had heavy boots on the ground with radio chatter in the background. But the scariest part was, you could literally hear the sound of weapons as they were jogging around. Then suddenly, the basement door swings open. 4 officers in tactical gear with helmets on and the word police across their chests. And they had weapons drawn and aimed directly at us. I could see the serious look on their face behind their visors. Not a single one of them thought that we were just some harmless teenagers. And as they make eye contact with us, they go, "On the ground now! Hands where we can see them!" So we went face down on the ground, which was pretty messed up to make us do, by the way, because the ground was dirty. And I also had one of my favorite shirts on. That got ruined. Like, you couldn't just have your weapon drawn at me while I was standing up. When they told us to get down, I dropped so fast my dang chin hit the floor. So all 3 of us were face down on the ground with the police having their weapons pointed right at us. And I remember lying there, cheek pressed against the cold floor, dust filling my nostrils with every terrified breath. And all I could think was, whatever's about to happen next, can y'all just please not tell my mom about this? If she found this out, she'd ground me till GTA 6 came out, which means forever. So they pressed their knees into our back as someone zip-tied our hands. "We've got 3 suspects secured," one officer said into his radio. I wanted to explain that we were just stupid kids trying to explore an abandoned mansion, but when you're face down with a weapon pointing at your back, for some reason, you don't really feel like talking back. Then they pulled me and my friends upstairs one by one. Then they sat us against a wall like a lineup in some police drama. All of a sudden, the lights inside the house came on. They knew exactly where the switches were. I didn't even know someone still paid the electric bill for this place. But when those lights came on, I was able to get my first look at just how serious this response was. Because this wasn't just local cops, it was a specialized unit with equipment that probably cost more than my college fund, all for me and my 2 friends. They had a full SWAT team out here just to arrest Dumb and Dumber. Then they started asking us questions. What's in your backpack? One officer demanded, gesturing to our bags that we dropped when we got inside. And something that wasn't funny at the time but is super funny to think about now is when they asked this question, my friend tried to answer, but his voice cracked so hard because of how nervous he was that he had to repeat what he said. I thought he was about to pee his pants because I said I was scared of what my mom would do if she found out about this. I couldn't imagine what his mom was about to do because she used to be in the military. I knew that whatever ended up happening in this situation, I was probably never going to see him again. Either because we were going to jail or his mom was going to ship him off to some boarding school in the middle of Asia somewhere. But then he gathered his voice and answered the question. Just our phones and waters, officer. And I could tell they thought that we were trying to steal stuff inside this place. So I told the officer, like, we're not trying to steal anything, sir. He gave me a look that clearly said he did not believe a word I just said. But then one of them dumped out the backpack, carefully examining my phone and the water bottles in it, and he threw away the granola bar I brought as a snack. Not cool, officer. But after looking through the whole bag, I guess it was pretty obvious that we weren't professional thieves. No tools, no weapons, nothing in there that suggested that we were there for any other reason simply than being nosy. So with us still in handcuffs, they finally put the weapons down. And for the first time, I was able to gather my thoughts a little bit. With the first one being, why would a whole SWAT team come to an abandoned building just to arrest a couple of kids for trespassing? Unfortunately, I got the answer, but it wasn't one I was hoping for. The officers radioed in saying, we've secured the premises and detained 3 juvenile trespassers. So that basically confirmed that I was gonna go to jail that night. I accepted that already. So at this point, my thoughts switched from, please don't make me go to jail, to, please don't make me share a cell with Diddy. Then the officer asked a question that we didn't understand at all. He said, who sent you? Like someone would actually hire 3 idiots to break into an abandoned mansion. But apparently, the reason they asked this was because this abandoned house was much more complicated than we realized. And I said, he's telling the truth, officer, trying to not look intimidated, even though a pee stain was probably going down my leg at that very moment. Then the officer got me worried because he said, you guys do realize that this isn't just a normal abandoned building, right? You triggered a silent alarm the moment you stepped onto this property. So I said, officer, we honestly don't know anything about this place. It looked completely abandoned from the outside. We just wanted to see what it looked like on the inside and maybe take some cool pictures. Then the lead officer exchanged looks with his partner, who still had his weapon by his side. Breaking and entering carries serious consequences, especially with a property of this value. The penal code treats this differently than any other normal abandoned building. Another officer that must have been the good cop in this relationship was looking through our backpacks, and then he said, just phones, water bottles, and a granola bar. No tools, no spray paint. Nothing that suggests intent to vandalize or steal. When he said this, I got my first sign of hope. The kinder officer knelt right beside us and said something that made a whole lot of sense. As he went, this property has motion sensors around it, and you guys triggered the silent alarm. When these alarms are triggered, the security company that the owner of this house pays a lot of money to have immediately responds to it. They contact law enforcement, and because of the value of this property, we respond with adequate force. So that's why they had so many people and they were taking this so seriously. And what this means is that if the security company ever alerts the authorities that my house is being robbed, they're going to respond by sending a mall cop. The nicer officer could tell that we were super terrified and that we weren't threats. So he tried to calm us down a little bit and he said, look, our protocol when responding to high-value property alarms is to secure the premises first and ask questions later. We have to treat every intrusion as potentially dangerous until proven otherwise. Which made sense. If there was someone actually dangerous in here, you have to prepare like it so you don't get hurt. But then the officer said something that once again made me think I was not going home that night, which was, now the owner hasn't been here in years, but it's still not legally abandoned. Someone is actively paying for security monitoring and they want trespassers prosecuted. So when they said this, I asked the golden question that me and my friends were all thinking. Officer, does this mean we're going to jail? Thinking about the cell I was about to have to share with Diddy, I waited for an answer. But then the officer went, no, we're just going to issue you guys a formal warning. But understand, you got lucky today. Trespassing on properties like this can result in serious charges, especially when you force entry. And to this day, I never told my mama about it.